I never thought I'd bury a body in the Nevada desert. But that's what love does to you. Turns you into the monster you swore you'd never become. My husband, Jake, the golden boy of Wall Street, had cheated on me with his assistant, a perky 20-something who probably thought prenup was a type of yoga pose. But the real gut punch? He framed me for his embezzlement scheme, leaving me to rot in a legal hell while he skipped town with our savings. That's when I decided revenge isn't a dish best served cold. It's served with a side of shattered illusions. And I was the chef. It started in the fluorescent haze of a Brooklyn coffee shop, the kind where baristas tattooed their regrets on their forearms and the air smelled like burnt dreams and overpriced lattes. I'd been married to Jake for 8 years. A whirlwind romance that began in the sticky summer of 17 at a rooftop party in the East Village. He was the hedge fund hotshot with the megawatt smile, the one who could charm a room full of venture capitalists into handing over their firstborns. I was Anna, the quiet graphic designer scraping by on freelance gigs, the girl who believed in second chances because my own family had doled them out like expired coupons. We met when he spilled his IPA on my vintage Doc Martens, and instead of apologizing, he bought me a new pair, Italian leather, size 7. Perfect fit. Fate's got a sense of humor, he said. And I laughed, because back then, everything with Jake was a punchline I wanted to be in on. Our life in New York was the glossy Instagram version of millennial struggle, a cramped one-bedroom in Williamsburg with exposed brick and a fire escape that doubled as our wine rack. Weekends hiking in the Catskills where he'd propose dumb toasts like to us, the broke-ass royals of Bushwick. But Jake's ambition was a freight train, barreling toward the C-suite while I lagged behind, sketching logos for startups that folded faster than a bad poker hand. He climbed the ladder at Vanguard Capital, rubbing elbows with the 1%ers, while I freelanced from our kitchen table, dodging calls from clients who ghosted after the invoice. "You're my rock, Anna," he'd say, kissing my forehead like I was a relic from a simpler time. I believed him. God, I was such a sucker. The first crack appeared in the fall of 23, when Jake's firm got audited. Whispers in the break room, sideways glances at the water cooler, nothing concrete, but enough to make my stomach knot like a poorly tied shoelace. He came home late that night, tie askew, eyes bloodshot from what he called client dinners. "Babe, it's nothing," he murmured into my hair as we lay in bed, the city humming outside like a distant threat. But I saw the emails on his laptop, the ones he forgot to close, frantic exchanges with his assistant, Mia, about offshore accounts and cooking the books, embezzlement. A cool $2 million skimmed from high-net-worth clients, funneled through shell companies in the Caymans. Jake's golden touch had turned to fool's gold, and he was panicking. I confronted him the next morning over cold cereal in our sun-dappled kitchen. "Jake, what the hell is this?" I shoved the laptop toward him, my voice cracking like thin ice. He didn't flinch, just stared at me with those baby blues, the ones that had reeled me in at that party years ago. "Anna, you don't understand. It's a glitch, a paperwork error. The auditors are sharks. They'll tear me apart. Lies. All of it." But I wanted to believe him. So I did the unthinkable. I covered for him. When the feds came knocking, I lied to their faces, said I'd handled some of the transfers as his personal assistant, forging timestamps on my own freelance invoices to match his timeline. It was stupid. Reckless, me. The loyal wife, taking the fall for his greed. He promised to fix it, to come clean after the heat died down. "I love you, Anna. You're saving us." But love's a lousy alibi. By winter, Mia was pregnant, not some immaculate conception, and Jake was packing his bags. "It's not working anymore," he said over a sterile Zoom call from a hotel in Miami. His face pixelated like our dissolving marriage. "You're holding me back, Anna." With the audit hanging over us, "I need a fresh start." Mia gets it. She sees the big picture. The divorce papers arrived via courier the next day. Airtight, with clauses that left me penniless and exposed. He hadn't just left me, he'd pinned the embezzlement rap on me, twisting my cover story into a confession. The feds were already circling, subpoenas piling up like unpaid bills. Jake vanished with our joint account drained, Mia on his arm, headed for a quiet life in the suburbs of Connecticut. I was alone, broke, and staring down a felony charge that could bury me deeper than his lies. That's when the secret kicked in, the one I'd buried deeper than Jake's conscience. For 2 years, I'd been moonlighting as a ghostwriter for a shady true crime podcast network out of LA. It started innocently enough, a gig polishing scripts for Midnight Confessions, episodes about Wall Street wolves and Silicon Valley sins. But the pay was shit. So I pitched my own angle, a deep dive series on corporate fraud, anonymized. Of course. They bit hard. Under the pseudonym Shadow Ledger, I wove tales of insiders gone rogue, drawing from Jake's war stories, but twisting them into fiction that hit too close to home. Listeners ate it up. Housewives in Ohio, tech bros in Austin, even a few finance insiders who DM'd me anonymously, spilling their guts for a shout-out. Sponsors flooded in VPNs, crypto wallets, the usual suspects peddling privacy to the paranoid. By the time Jake bailed, I'd banked $500,000, wired to an offshore account I'd set up on a whim after reading about tax havens in one of his old Forbes mags. Irony. Thy name is Karma. The money was clean, untraceable, a digital fortress against the storm he unleashed. But revenge? That wasn't about the cash. It was about the look on his face when the house of cards he'd built on my back came tumbling down. I could have lawyered up, fought the charges with my nest egg, but where's the fun in that? No. I wanted him to feel the slow burn, the kind that starts in your gut and radiates out like radiation from a dirty bomb. Phase 1, the leak. I started small, seeding anonymous tips to the podcast tip line, tips about a rogue trader at Vanguard who fled with his pregnant side piece, leaving his wife to clean up the mess. Listeners lapped it up, speculating in the comments, "Sounds like that asshole from the 22 scandal." The episode dropped in early spring, narrated in my best gravelly voiceover, painting Jake as the villain in a morality play for the masses. Mia's socials blew up. Old colleagues started ghosting his LinkedIn. He tried calling me once, a blocked number slipping through. "Anna, what the fuck? This is you, isn't it? You're ruining everything." I let it go to voicemail, his voice a tinny echo of the man I'd loved. But he was slippery, always had been. Jake lawyered up quick, spinning a counter-narrative. I was the unstable ex, bitter and broke, fabricating stories to extort him. He even filed a restraining order, claiming I'd harassed him via the podcast, Pure Theater. But it worked. The judge, some silver-haired patrician from the Upper East Side, bought a hook, line, and sinker. My freelance dried up. Clients whispered about that fraud chick. The feds leaned harder, raiding my apartment in a Dawn SWAT spectacle that made the local news. Wife of missing trader linked to embezzlement ring. I played the part, disheveled, tear-streaked, the perfect damsel in distress. Inside, I was sharpening the knife. Summer hit like a fever dream. Humidity thick as Jake's excuses. I relocated to a no-tell motel in Jersey. The kind with stains on the carpet that told stories you didn't want to hear.
From there,
I dug deeper, hiring a PI with a chunk of my secret stash, a grizzled ex-cop named Harlan who chain-smoked camels and called everyone sport. Harlan uncovered the gold mine. Jake wasn't just hiding in Connecticut. He'd rebooted as a consultant for a boutique firm in Stamford, using Mia's family connections to launder his ill-gotten gains through real estate flips. And the kicker? The baby wasn't his. DNA results buried in a doctor's file, courtesy of Mia's cold feet during a routine checkup. She'd cheated too, with Jake's former boss, the very auditor who'd greenlit his schemes. The web of betrayal was a spider's feast, and I was the fly who'd slipped the silk. Armed with that, Phase 2 unfolded like a bad acid trip. I fed the podcast another bomb, The Cuckold Trader, an episode detailing a finance bro's downfall, complete with veiled nods to Stamford and a hypothetical paternity twist. Jake's new gig imploded overnight. Clients bolted like rats from a sinking yacht. Mia left him in a hail of Instagram stories, crying selfies captioned, "Truth hurts." Babe's single mom vibes, taking the kid and half his assets in a countersuit. He was spiraling. Harlan reported, holed up in a rented McMansion, pounding makers Mark and rage posting on expat finance forums. "He's cracking." "Sport," Harlan grunted over the phone, his voice like gravel in a blender. "One more push, and he'll beg." I could have stopped there, walked away with my $500K and a clean slate. But stopping would have made me the sucker again. No, I needed the face-to-face. The moment when his world cracked open and he saw me, not the doormat wife, but the architect of his ruin. So I arranged the meet, a neutral spot, a dive bar in the meatpacking district called the Rusty Nail, where the jukebox played Springsteen on loop and the bartenders didn't ask questions. I texted from a burner. "We need to talk." "One drink." "No cops."
he bit, desperate for a lifeline.
The bar smelled like stale peanuts and regret when I walked in, my heart hammering like a jackhammer on asphalt. Jake was at the corner booth, unshaven, his Brooks Brothers shirt untucked like a white flag of surrender. "Anna," he rasped as I slid in opposite him, the vinyl seat sticking to my thighs in the AC-chilled gloom. "Jesus, what have you done?" His eyes were red-rimmed, pleading, the megawatt smile a ghost. I ordered a whiskey neat as the lies I'd swallowed for years. "Me? I'm just evening the score."
"Jake."
"You remember that prenup you laughed off? The one where you said we'd always be a team? Turns out, teams need trust."
He leaned in,
voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper.
"Babe,
I fucked up. Mia's gone. The job's toast. It's all falling apart. But we can fix this. Drop the podcast bullshit. Testify that it was all a misunderstanding. I'll come clean. Take the hit. For us."
Us.
The word hung there like smoke from a dying cigarette. I almost bought it, almost let the old Anna surface. The one who'd covered for him because love meant sacrifice. But then I saw it, the flicker in his eyes, the same calculating glint from the audit days. He wasn't begging, he was scheming, probably recording me on his phone, baiting a confession to flip the script again. That's when I dropped the bomb. I slid a USB drive across the table, matte black and innocuous. "Play it," I said, voice steady as the Hudson outside. It was the audio, his own voice, caught on a wire Harlan had planted during a consulting meet, admitting the embezzlement, the framing, even the offshore siphoning. For insurance, he chuckled to his mark. Jake's face drained of color, whiskey glass trembling in his grip. Where? How? He stammered, the golden boy reduced to a stammering fool. Shadow ledger, I said, leaning back with a smile that felt like victory laced with acid. That's me.
Jake.
Your rock? More like your reckoning. And the $500K? That's from spilling your secrets to the world, one episode at a time. Clean money. No strings, unlike the noose you tried to tie around my neck. His reaction was priceless, a choked laugh that dissolved into sobs. Hands raking through his hair as the jukebox crooned, Born to Run. Shock. Denial. Rage. He cycled through them like a man drowning in his own reflection. You bitch, he whispered finally. But there was no heat. Just hollow defeat. You destroyed me. Good, I replied, standing to leave, the bar's neon buzzing like vindication. Now you know how it feels. I walked out into the night, the city pulse syncing with my own, a freer beat, unburdened. But as I hailed a cab, phone buzzing with podcast download alerts, a twist gnawed at me, Harlan's last report, the one I hadn't shared. Jake's confession on the USB, it wasn't just about the money. Buried in the static was a mention of my brother, Tommy, the junkie who'd OD'd 5 years back. Jake had supplied the fatal hit, covered it up as an accident to protect his image. I'd taken the fall for that too, lying to the cops about Tommy's clean streak. The secret I'd buried wasn't just the cash, it was complicity in my own brother's death. All for the man who'd sworn to love me. Revenge tasted like ash now, bittersweet and choking. Had I avenged Tommy, or just perpetuated the cycle? Jake's ruin was my triumph. But at what cost? As the cab merged into traffic, horns blaring like accusations, I wondered if the real monster was the one staring back from the window, me. Anna, the ghostwriter of grudges, forever haunted by the ink of unforgiven sins. The fallout hit like a nor'easter off the Atlantic, whipping through my life with winds that uprooted everything I'd patched together. By morning after the Rusty Nail showdown, Jake was in cuffs, feds swarming his McMansion like ants on a picnic. Mia testifying from her lawyer's office with a baby on her hip, spilling beans faster than a tipped-over canning jar. The podcast episode I'd teased, The Reckoning, dropped at midnight, narrated with a venom that surprised even me, detailing the meetup in veiled terms that screamed authenticity. Downloads spiked to viral levels. Reddit threads dissected it like autopsy reports, with titles like, "Is this real life or just peak true crime?" I watched from my Jersey motel, chain-smoking menthols I'd sworn off in college, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room. Harlan called at dawn, his voice gravelly from lack of sleep. It's done. Sport. Your boy's singing like a canary, full confession. Your name cleared. Even mentioned the brother thing. Said it was mutual regret. Mutual. The word slithered like a snake in tall grass. Tommy's death had been our dirty little pact. A pact sealed in the back room of a Hell's Kitchen dive where Jake had fronted the smack as a one-time favor to impress some connected lowlifes. I'd found Tommy blue-lipped on our old couch, needle marks like accusation tattoos on his arms. Jake held me that night, whispering, "We'll make it right,
Anna."
No one has to know. And I'd believed him, because grief makes liars of us all.
Now,
with the truth airing like dirty laundry on a fire escape, I felt exposed, raw as a fresh tattoo. But freedom's a double-edged sword. sharp on both sides. The charges against me evaporated like morning fog over the East River, prosecutors dropping the embezzlement bomb with apologies that rang hollow as a politician's promise. My freelance inquiries trickled back. Tentative at first. Heard about your ex? Wild stuff. Got any availability for a rebrand? I said yes to all of them. My secret $500K, a safety net I dipped into sparingly, funneling bits into a legit IRA like a penitent sinner tithing to the gods of fiscal responsibility. New York welcomed me back with open arms and wary eyes. Neighbors in my rebuilt Williamsburg walk-up nodded knowingly at the grocery, whispering, "That's her. The one who took him down." I wore it like a badge. Or maybe a scarlet letter. Hard to tell in the mirror some days. Jake's trial was the circus of the season. Splashed across the Post and Daily News like tabloid confetti, Wall Street Wolf bites the hand that fed him. He looked smaller in the courtroom sketches, shoulders hunched under the weight of orange jumpsuits and fluorescent lights. Mia absent, but her lawyer present, carving up his assets like a Thanksgiving turkey. I testified. Of course, reluctantly. Under oath. My voice steady as I recounted the framing, the lies, the USB that sealed his fate. The defense painted me as the vengeful harpy, twisting my podcast success into profiteering from pain, but the jury, a mix of blue-collar commuters and jaded millennials, didn't buy it. They saw Jake for what he was, a snake in a suit, shedding skins to slither away from accountability. Guilty on all counts. Wire fraud, money laundering, even a lesser charge of involuntary manslaughter tied to Tommy's supply chain. Sentenced to 15 in federal lockup. Upstate in Otisville, where the Hudson Valley views mocked his fall from grace. I watched the verdict on CNN from a Soho cafe, sipping a flat white that tasted like closure. His reaction in the dock. Priceless. Part 2. A crumple. Slow and seismic. Like a paper tower folding under its own weight. Eyes locking on mine across the gallery. Not with hate, but something worse, recognition. "Anna," he mouthed, and I swear I saw the ghost of that rooftop party. The spilled beer and easy laughs. Then the bailiffs hauled him away, and the courtroom emptied like a theater after the credits roll. Life post-Jake was a patchwork quilt of normalcy and nightmares. I upgraded to a loft in Dumbo. Views of the Brooklyn Bridge that glittered like fool's gold at night. My podcast deal expanding into a book advance, 6 figures. Option for Netflix before the ink dried. Shadow Ledger, Confessions of a Corporate Widow, they called it. My byline finally out of the shadows. Book tours took me cross-country, packed houses in Austin, where techies grilled me on ethics, quiet nods in Seattle coffee shops, where the rain mirrored my mood. I dated a venture capitalist here, a novelist there, but it was surface level, like skating on a frozen pond, always aware of the cracks beneath. The twist came in the dead of an Indian summer night, 3 months after sentencing. A letter, postmarked Otisville, scrawled in Jake's looping script that I'd once traced with my finger in love notes. "Anna," it began. "No, dear. Just my name like a brand. You think you won? That podcast. The money, it's all tainted. Remember the brother? Tommy didn't OD on my dime. He was clean, trying to go straight, until you told me about his dealer connections. I used them to help him score a job, but it was a setup. Your words, your secrets, they killed him as much as the needle. Lies? Truth?" The paper trembled in my hands, ink blurring under sudden tears. I'd confessed to Jake early in our marriage, spilling Tommy's history over wine, thinking it bonded us. Had he weaponized it, dangled the drugs as a twisted loyalty test? I drove upstate the next weekend, the thruway a blur of foliage turning trader red. Otisville was a gray fortress squatting on the hill, barbed wire glinting like bad omens. Visitation rooms smelled of bleach and despair, inmates shuffling in like extras from a prison flick. Jake looked gaunt, the megawatt dimmed to a flicker. But his eyes, those eyes, still held that schemer's spark. "You came," he said, chaining his hands to the table with a metallic clink. "Knew you would. Closure, right?" "Fuck your closure," I snapped, sliding the letter back. "Tommy, was it true? Did I?" He leaned in, voice a conspiratorial hiss. "Half true."
Babe.
I sourced the hit. "Yeah, but you greenlit it by blabbing. We were a team. Remember? Your secret, my execution." The room spun, the guard's radio crackling like static in my brain. Betrayal layered on betrayal. A Russian doll of deceit. I'd gambled my soul for his, and lost both. But here's the gut wrench. As he spun his web, I saw the fracture in him, the man who'd loved me once, before the money and the masks. "I did it for us," he whispered, echoing that audit night. "To keep the dream alive."
Dream.
What a crock. Yet, in that fluorescent hell, I felt a pull, a magnetic north of what-ifs. Did I destroy him, or liberate us both, leaving the prison, the autumn wind whipping my coat like judgment? I deleted the podcast app from my phone. The 500K sat untouched, a king's ransom for a hollow crown. Back in the city, the skyline loomed indifferent, a concrete jungle where wolves like Jake thrived until they didn't. I started a new series, Echoes of Absolution, Stories of Redemption. Gray areas where right and wrong blurred like city lights in rain. Listeners tuned in, divided. Some hailed me as avenger, others as enabler. "You profited from pain," one review snarled. "Or exposed it," countered another.
Me?
I floated in the middle, a ghost in my own narrative, wondering if revenge was the hook or the sinker. Winter clamped down on New York like a vice, snow piling up on fire escapes and burying the sins of the year under pristine white lies. My loft in Dumbo became a cocoon, walls lined with rejection letters from my pre-Jake freelance days, reminders that I'd risen from the ashes, even if they smelled of sulfur. The book launch was a whirlwind, black tie affair at a Flatiron gallery. Champagne flutes clinking like fragile truces. Critics murmuring about raw vulnerability, while eyeing me like a sideshow freak. Anna Hargrove, the moderator, gushed. "From betrayed spouse to best-selling truth-teller. How does it feel?" I smiled. Scripted, like trading shackles for spotlights. But spotlights cast long shadows. The crowd chuckled, mistaking wit for wisdom, oblivious to the chill that settled in my bones. Harlan retired to Florida, pocketing his fee with a wink and a warning. "Watch your back. Sport. Snakes don't die, they just shed." His words echoed as anonymous emails trickled in, tips for the new podcast. Or threats. "Shadow knows all," one read. Signed, "A friend in low places." Paranoia bloomed like mold in the walls. Every shadow a suspect. I hired security for the tours. A burly ex-Marine named Rico who drove like he was evading paparazzi. In Chicago, a heckler at the signing accused me of glorifying trauma for clicks, her voice shrill over the murmur. "You profited off your brother's death." Security escorted her out, but her words stuck like burrs, pricking at the what-ifs Jake had planted. The holidays were a minefield. I flew home to Philly, to Mom's row house where the Christmas tree sagged under tinsel and unspoken grief. Tommy's stocking still hung by the mantel, empty as his promises to get clean. "Your father's so proud," Mom said over eggnog, her eyes misty with the selective blindness of maternal love. Dad grunted from his recliner, Fox News droning about fake news scandals, oblivious to the real one in his daughter's rearview. I confessed fragments, the podcast, the money, Jake's rot, but spared the Tommy tape, the complicity that bound us like family heirloom chains. "You did what you had to," Mom murmured, hugging me fierce. Had I? Or had I just traded one grave for another? New Year's Eve found me in Times Square. Not the ball drop crush, but a quiet bar overlooking the chaos, toasting alone with a Sazerac that burned going down. The TV blared Jake's appeal hearing, reduced sentence to 10 years for cooperation, his lawyer spinning tales of remorse and rehabilitation. "A family man led astray," the talking head opined, Mia nodding tearfully from the sidelines. Baby in tow now, too, with her boss's eyes. Cooperation. He'd ratted on half of Vanguard's exec suite, trading secrets for leniency. My USB was the domino, but his silver tongue the avalanche. Rage flickered, hot and familiar, but I tamped it down, scrolling my phone for distractions, a DM from an old client, a fan edit of my book cover with devil horns. Spring thawed the ice, and with it came the offer, a Netflix adaptation. 7 figures if I consulted. Meetings in LA. Sun-soaked bungalows where execs in athleisure pitched edgier arcs, make Anna more unlikable, amp the sex. Lean into the moral ambiguity. I walked out of one, the script in hand feeling like a betrayal of my own ink. Moral ambiguity. That's what the twist with Jake had birthed. A gray fog where heroes and villains swapped masks mid-dance. Was I the avenger who'd liberated truth, or the opportunist who'd monetized misery? Forums debated it endlessly. Team Anna versus Team Jake, with memes of me as a crown-wearing Medusa, petrifying finance bros with a microphone. The breaking point came in May, a sticky afternoon in Central Park where the joggers blurred into anonymity. I was bench-sitting, sketching ideas for the next episode, a tale of a whistleblower who regretted the blow when a shadow fell across the page. "Anna?" Soft voice. Hesitant.
Mia.
Older than I remembered. Lines etched around eyes that held no more perk. She sat uninvited, clutching a thermos like a lifeline. I owe you an apology. Or thanks. Hell, both. Her words tumbled out. The affair with the boss. The pregnancy lied to trap Jake. The countersuit that left her scraping by in Queens. He was poison from the start. You saw it first. We talked for hours. The sun dipping low. Pigeons scavenging crumbs like gossip. She confessed her own secrets, knowing about the embezzlement, even wiring a few transfers to pad her nest egg. I thought it was victimless, she said, voice cracking. White-collar crime, right? Until it wasn't. Empathy crept in, unwelcome as weeds in a manicured lawn. Here is another pawn in Jake's game. Or maybe a co-conspirator. Why tell me now? I asked, wary. Because the kid asks about his Uncle Jake, she replied, eyes on the horizon. And I don't want him growing up poisoned too. Your story, it's out there. Warning shots for the next fool. We parted with numbers exchanged, a tentative truce in the war of the wronged. Driving back to Brooklyn, the Williamsburg Bridge humming under tires, I felt the weight shift, not lifted, but redistributed. Mia's absolution. or whatever it was, cracked the mirror I'd stared into too long. Summer peaked in a heat wave that turned the city into a skillet, tempers flaring like faulty wiring. The Netflix deal signed, filming slated for fall. But I bowed out as consultant, let them fictionalize the gray. I needed the real, unfiltered. Instead, I poured into echoes, episodes that blurred lines. The thief who stole to feed a family. The lover who lied for love's sake. Listeners split harder, some unsubscribed in moral outrage. Others binged for the unease. "You make us complicit," one review praised. "And that's the point," I tweeted back. My first public out in months. Jake's final letter arrived in August. Typed this time. Official as a death warrant. "Parole hearing next spring," it read. "They say I'm reformed. Read your book, touched a nerve. Maybe we talk then?" Clear the air. No signature. Just a PS. The 500K? Use it well. You earned it. Earned. The word mocked. A callback to spilled beers and rooftop toasts. I burned the letter in the loft's tiny fireplace, flames devouring the page like truths I'd long suppressed. Reformed? Jake was a chameleon, colors shifting with the light. But the air was already clear, smoky, scarred, but breathable. By fall, the city cooled, leaves carpeting sidewalks like confetti from a bitter parade. I walked the High Line at dusk, the Hudson a ribbon of reflected lights, contemplating the endgame. Revenge had been my North Star, guiding through betrayal's blackout. But stars fade at dawn. The 500K funded a foundation now, grants for whistleblowers, therapy for fraud victims, turning poison into poultice. Mia and I grabbed coffee monthly, co-parenting not a kid, but cautionary tales for her son. "Aunt Anna's the badass," he'd say, and I'd laugh, because in the end, that's what stuck. Was it a happy ending? Hell no. Too clean for the mess we'd made. Jake's parole loomed like a storm cloud, twist unresolved. Would he slither back, reformed or rancid? Would I meet him, offer olive branch or Molotov? The debate raged in my head. In fan mails, in late-night AMAs, Team Mercy versus Team Vengeance. No victors, just voices in the fray. But as I stood there, wind tousling my hair like an old lover's hand, I knew one truth. I'd survived the snake, shed my own skin, emerged not unscathed, but unbreakable. In America's grind, where dreams died daily under boot heels, that was victory enough, priceless. And mine alone.